Hello, everybody. This is Peter and Sylvia. We are talking about mental health, as you know, and the topic today is performance punishment. Now, that's an exciting term for you that Sylvia and I have just learned recently by following what's going on LinkedIn. And someone talked about performance punishment. And I thought it was a wonderful term because it describes very accurately, really, what can happen at work when when we do what, Sylvia?
Well, when we do, if I quote from this LinkedIn post that I had, and I do apologise to who posted it because it hasn't picked up the name, so I do apologise. But it goes along the lines of being good at your job often attracts more work. It's called performance punishment, and it's a dangerous game for leaders. Overworking your high performers to avoid growing your underperformers is a fast track to disaster. It breeds resentment. Good people will leave and poor performers will not learn. Be very careful of the behaviours and standards we reward. So that's really what it is. It's overworking your high performers and avoiding growing for whatever reason your underperformers. And when I read that post, Peter, I thought, goodness, yeah, I've been on the receiving end of that. From the angle of bit like as we've spoken before. If you've got something to do, ask a busy person. If you want something done, ask a busy person. And I've been on the receiving end. I wouldn't have known it as performance punishment because it's a new term to me. But when you hear what it's about, I have been in many situations where I've been given work to do, or, oh, Sylvia, can you do that? Sylvia, can you do this? And you get on with it. And then you sometimes think, hang on a minute, so why haven't they been given that? And why hasn't she been given that? And equally, when I've been as a leader, having a team of various abilities and various performance levels, it would be very easy to give, if you've got some special project or something that really needs to be done, you're up against a deadline, to give it to the high performer, the performer that you know will get it done. But I've always been very mindful of that to make sure I've grown all my team. So I can really sort of see it from both sides, but it's a very interesting phraseology that's been given to something that I think a lot of us may have experienced from time to time.
And I think the terminology performance punishment is from the perspective of the person who gets dumped with a lot of work all the time. Because managers do not necessarily punish their team members, giving them more work. They're concerned with deadlines, performance targets, that sort of thing. So they want whatever it is, they want it done, so they give it to the person where they know that it will get done.
Mm-hmm.
But it is, it's the easy way out, isn't it?
Mm.
Where instead, if you invest a little bit time in bringing other people up to speed, then you can get even more done.
Mm.
But it's that initial effort that
Mm.
can seem too big, too drawn out because a deadline is looming. We need to get this off our desk onto somebody else's desk.
Mm.
So it doesn't happen.
Mm.
But you do end up burning the high achievers out.
Mm.
You might find that the high achievers feel taken advantage of. And as you and I have talked about, it causes resentment. Why
Mm.
do I have to do all of this when the person sitting next to me is
Mm.
hardly doing anything?
Mm.
And that person might not want to do anything and is absolutely fine just wasting the day away and looking at other people working, or they might be really keen to get onto something, but they never get given anything.
Mm.
So I think as a team leader, as a manager, whatever we want to call that person in charge of a team, has to be very clued into the level of performance that's there and understand what can you ask people and what can you not.
Mm. There's two things that just popped up while you've been saying that, Peter. When I've been in that situation when people have given me stuff to do, I haven't thought of it in terms of punishment. I've actually might have been a little bit miffed. Oh, why have I got that again? But at the same time, there's a certain um, almost like a pride and excitement, or yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
Hmm?
give it to me, I can do that. So it's one of those things: is the more you do, the more you get. So there is an element of um, being proud that someone's given me that to do. But to your point about burnout, where is that point at which it becomes too much? So, as a performer, we can always dig a bit deeper, do a bit more, do a bit more, do a bit more. But at what point is that doing a bit more tip into that punishment thing? And I've never really thought of it in terms of punishment. But equally, the other point is from a leadership side, picking up on your other point, it's so important, in my opinion, to know your team, because the other person might have already said, this is my level. And for me to recognise that that is their level and not to push them too hard that they burn out, because they are already at their level. And also recognising that that other person may be okay doing what they do. And that's okay as well. So it's knowing your team, what they need, what they want. Can you push them? Do you not? Is it the right thing to do, or isn't it? It's more and more complex the more we sort of talk about it.
As always.
Yes.
But I do take your point that you were proud that you were asked to do things. You wanted to prove your worth and how good you were. And that's perfectly okay as well. Why not be proud that you get given the trust, really, to do a certain job? I just think when pride becomes worn out and you think, I'm being taken advantage of, that's when you switch to victim mode and think, oh, this is punishment.
Yeah.
Even though it is not intended as punishment. And this is where we should not forget our own responsibility.
Yes.
Because we do have the right and the ability to say, no, my plate is full, I can't do more. I'm happy to do this one, but it will have to be at the expense of something else. So can we have a conversation about that then? Of course, you can overdo that as well, so that you're always overworking and full and actually do hardly anything. But again, that comes down to knowing the individuals on your team and knowing who are the skivers, who are the hard workers. And there will be some of both always, because we're human beings. But it's really fascinating about how you can split work across a team whose abilities and interest levels and all the rest of it are different, when actually the job that needs to be done is pretty much the same.
It's interesting, just having a look back at this quote here, but overworking the high performers to avoid growing your underperformers is a fast track to result. So that's interesting, and as a leader, does that person avoid giving it to the underperformer because the leader's got to spend a little bit more time, a little bit more energy, park their stuff while they train or upskill that performer? Is it done? Oh, it's just easier to give it to the high performer. And it's that avoidance, because it does take, as you and I both know as leaders, it takes a lot when you're a leader to do that with your team, because sometimes you have your own pressures, but you also know you want to upskill your team. And sometimes perhaps it is easier to give it to someone else. So this avoidance of upskilling the underperformers or the performers that could do better, that's another sort of really interesting angle.
And it also, from this particular person whose name unfortunately we haven't got here,
sorry about that.
But all credit to whoever wrote it.
Exactly.
Avoidance, I love that term, because it makes me question avoiding what exactly. Is it avoiding spending time, or is it avoiding conflict?
Yes.
Because you could have people sitting there and if I ask that person to do something, which I know they're well capable of, they will kick up a fuss, and I can't be asked to have that conversation with them yet again. So it's easier to just let them be and do no harm, and then overwork somebody else, and in that way actually do harm. So this is the whole thing about being in a managerial position. It is difficult. Because it's not about your technical skills, it's about your people skills.
Yes.
And everyone you work with will be different. And you and I have both recognized this thing, that work tends to flow in the direction where it gets done. And it's easy. You put the boat in the river and the stream just takes it to where it needs to go. But at what cost? So you and I try to come up with solutions to or answers to the questions. And I think, getting to the end of this conversation, I don't know what we can conclude other than we need to look at how we manage people, how we train and upskill and maintain the capabilities, so that no one gets a favor of doing nothing or the favor of doing everything.
I think for me, you know, as you say, we come up with sort of thoughts and ideas for what we can do differently. I suppose for me, if one is in that situation where something comes along and we always give it to the high performer, or the default position is to do that, it's just sort of stop and pause. Why am I giving it to what am I avoiding by giving it to the high performer? Is it the fact that if it sits on someone's desk, it might sit there for ages, so you end up taking it away from them and giving it to someone else? But why is that person sitting with it on their desk? Is it because they don't understand? They need more training, they need more knowledge, more information? Just think about, you know, why the default position? What could you do differently to actually give it to someone else?
There's a lot to think about. There's a lot to learn and understand rather than just apportion blame.
Yes.
So I think we should ask everyone who's stuck with us this far to come back and tell us what you think.
Yes.
So thank you for watching. We see you in the next video. Take care.
Bye-bye.